Hi everyone, my name is Piterpakulski. Today we will continue building a financial model for a bakery. Actually today we have a final overview of this story. So today I will be telling you what inputs and why usually entrepreneurs want to play with when everything is ready, when they finish the financial model. So I will be walking along the financial model, and I will be telling you what inputs and why usually future business owners want to play with during scenario analysis, why this level of detail is so important. So today we have a final overview of a bakery financial model. So I will give you all the links in the description of this video on the tutorials how I've created this model from scratch, and at the end screen of this video I will give you the link to the playlist where all these tutorials will be living. So like, share, subscribe, order financial models from scratch for your unique business ideas. We can help you with that. And so let's start. So first of all, if you are building any model, any financial model, you have to create the rule for your inputs. So in our model, all inputs are colored with specific color. So when we are building different scenarios, so we are setting up the data only in these cells, in these blue cells. You can choose your own colors. So these are the inputs, these are the inputs, these are the inputs. So first of all, you can't be so if you are even if you are talking about a small business, you can't be using average values. So if you want to believe your revenues inside the cash flow statement, so the problem of, let me explain you. So first for example, so the majority of entrepreneurs, and when they build the cash flow statement and when they see the revenues, you have to be absolutely confident that the logic of this revenue is straight, and you're sure about the revenue generating algorithm. So first of all, you need to create a credible revenue generating algorithm. So in our case, we are taking all the product line that we are gonna sell inside our bakery, and so this is the product line. These are the ingredients, and here in this table we are specifying the consumption of ingredients. So this is the product line, and these are ingredients. And it is very important once and forever to specify the consumption of different ingredients to bake, for example, one item of bread type number 1. So this is important because if we specify the consumption of these ingredients, we will calculate in details direct costs. And then if we know direct costs, if we know the direct costs, and we will be setting up the sales plan specifically for this type of bread, we will be able to calculate the revenues the right way. So everything starts from the small pieces, and these numbers are start traveling from inputs to the revenues in the right way. So this is very important because this makes you feel comfortable with final values inside the cash flow statement. So what is important also, so when you are building the product line and you build a scenario, you are looking at a simple and discounted payback period. So you may think that
for example, you are too optimistic with these, for example, product line items, and just you wanna switch them off from calculations. So very often entrepreneurs want to see what will happen to their business ideas if their product line will be shortened and they won't be selling these products, for example. What will happen to the cash flow? How much financing will be needed in that way? What will be the simple discounted payback period? So they need to have an environment where they will be able to switch these items from calculations, go to simple and discounted payback period diagrams. For example, they can look at financial efficiency of their business ideas and make a decision, for example, that they are really too optimistic with their base scenario. So if something happens with these product line items, the project starts being negative. And this is very important, so all this is usually shown during scenario analysis. So people are switching on and off different items, revenues, expenses from calculations, cash flows. So they're experimenting at a very high level. So they create 20, 30, 40 scenarios. What will happen if this, if that. And this is one of critical things, that you have to have some on and off buttons inside the product line to switch off some items from calculations and see the performance of the business without these items. So this is very important. It doesn't matter whether your business is small, medium, or big. So you have to think about that all the time. Then you need to have detailed sales plan for each item or inside the product line. And so if you have to and your financial model, so usually everything starts from increasing the sales plan, decreasing sales plan. So for example, what will happen if we increase the sales plan on 20%, for example? What will be the financial efficiency? What will happen if we for example decrease the sales plan on 30%? What will happen if we take 70% of basic scenario values? So in this case, the future business owner starts to know his business idea more closely. Or for example, the business owner can, for example, go to specific items and decrease their sales plan, for example, and take, for example, 60% of sales plan for specific items. Or for example, what will happen if we have 50% of sales plan for these items? So in this case, playing with these items, so the business owner starts understanding what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses of his business idea. So he starts playing with all these coefficients. So he starts playing with global coefficients first, then he dives deeper to the local coefficients. The same story happens with pricing. So for example, what will happen if the prices will for example grow on 40%? So he goes to diagrams, looks what will happen. Then he, for example, looks what will happen if the prices will be
will decrease on 40%, what will happen to the project, for example. And then, as usually, he starts getting acquainted with his business idea. So this is the first of all, he is using global coefficients, but then he starts using, for example, local coefficients. For example, what will happen if prices on specific product line items will decrease on 20%, for example, like this. So during this scenario modeling, the entrepreneurs usually start rethinking their business concept, because when they start playing with all these global coefficients, local coefficients, they see that, for example, it's too early to start the business and they need to rethink some business concept. So this is very interesting period during the life cycle of the business idea. So scenario play is very important. Then it's very interesting to think about the customer types. So for example, we've created the revenues. So we have the product line, we've created the revenue by product. Then we need to allocate these revenues by different types of customers. And first of all, we are start allocating the percentage of revenues between different types of customers. And this is also a very interesting block of inputs. For example, so here we can see that, for example, we are giving 48% of revenues to the customer number 5. And maybe in this case we are too optimistic as well. And for example, we may so this is the scenario to see what will happen if we switch off this customer from calculations, because it is too optimistic. The average check is very big, so it gives us 48% of revenue. So we are going back and see what will happen to our business idea in this particular case. So usually what business owners do, they are switching on and off different types of customers. They start reallocating the percentage of revenues between different types of customers, and they start looking at simple discounted payback period diagram. They are looking at the cash flow, they are looking at financial efficiency, how much financing needed in this case, in that case. So this is very important block of inputs. So for example, they say that they assume that 48%, for example, of revenues will go to the customer, for example, number 1, and we'll just take, let's do it another way. So for example, so they start reallocating the revenue. So for example, they say that 60% of revenues will go to this type of customer. Then for example, 15% of revenues will go here. Then 10% will go here. Then 10% go here. Then they go back to the so for example, if we can go here, see what will happen in this way. For example, we can switch off, for example, this type of customer, see what will happen in this scenario. So if you create a flexible model, you will be able to play with scenarios very easily, very fast. You will be able to see the strengths of your business idea, weaknesses of your business idea, how stable your business idea. So this is a very important to have these on and off buttons, is very important. So to have these on global and local coefficients is very important as well, because you are not playing with inputs themselves, you are playing with only with coefficients. You can quickly create different combinations of scenarios. You can increase the revenues, decrease expenses. You can increase expenses, decrease the revenues. You can increase the revenue for specific items, decrease specific expenses, and look what will happen very quickly. And then put back, for example, the base values of all the coefficients. So a lot of new information is found during the stage of scenario modeling and playing with all these coefficients. So then we have the list of ingredients. We can switch them on and off from calculations. We can, for example, play with global coefficients for direct expenses. For example, what will happen to our business idea if direct costs increase on 30%. So we can, for example, see the simple discounted payback period. Or, for example, we can increase or decrease specific coefficient for specific ingredient and see what will happen to our two financials. Now let's move forward. Then it is very important, for example, to have an opportunity to displace the project in timeline. So, for example, if we can easily displace the project, for example, to November 2023. Or we can displace the project to 2024. So this is very valuable plus of financial model, because during scenario modeling a lot of displacements are being done, and if you are able to do it very quickly without retyping the inputs, the data, you are not making mistakes. So this is very important. Then so when we have different types of customers, we have a very important block of inputs about how fast we are reaching the target revenues. So why it is so important? So if we go to the cash flow statement, we will be able to see that the total amount of financing which we need to start the business consists of two parts. The first part is investment stage expenses, and the second part is operating stage losses. So there are, for example, 2 months in our project when we do have revenues, but all local expenses are higher than the revenues, and we have some operating losses. So that's why we need to finance these losses. So we are financing these losses, investment stage expenses, and these expenses during operating activity. And when you start a business, you won't be able to get the maximum of revenues right from the first month. So this is very important to understand. And this table of inputs allow us to play with the speed of how fast we are reaching the target revenue. So, for example, if we set up 100% of target revenues happen right on the first month of operating activity, and we will go back to the cash flow statement. So here we can see that we don't need any additional financing. But in reality, this is not true. And when a financial model is ready, all business owners they usually play with these values of percentages, and playing with these inputs, they are looking at these operating losses and see how these losses affect the total amount of financing needed to start the business. So they are looking, for example, they are looking here, and then they, for example, go up, adjust these percentages, then they return to this table and see what will happen to the financing needed, and playing with these percentages, they see the bad scenario with the maximum of financing needed, and the most positive scenario when they need the less amount of financing. So this is very important block of inputs, because when you open your business, you won't be able to get the maximum of revenues right from the first month of operating activity. That's why you will face operating losses, and by using this table you will be able to calculate the amount of these losses plus to the amount of money that you will have to finance during the investment stage. So then we are moving to fixed expenses, fixed costs. Here the important thing about fixed costs, so here we may place, for example, the rent. So we can play with local and global coefficients. We can, for example, we can switch on and off different expenses from calculations like advertising, rent, and see how they affect the financial efficiency. And what is important about this block? So we are here. We will be placing a rent, and we will be able to see the critical rent that our project will cope with. So, and this is for example, this is the place. So fixed cost is a block of inputs where the future business owners realizes, so he can for example search for a location not more than, for example, with the rent not more than, for example, $15,000 monthly, and he will be looking at the cash flow statement, and he will be able to see why. So also there can be a story when fixed costs may have some seasonality, and this seasonality may for example create some operating losses, for example summer losses during, for example, summer season. So that's why we can't just use average values and extrapolate them from left to right. If some fixed costs have some algorithms, we will be able to allocate these costs inside the typical year and see what will happen to the cash flow statement if we have some seasonality inside fixed costs. So then we are moving to the payroll. So the same story with payroll. So we can use global and local coefficients. We can switch on and off different positions from calculations. So we can, for example, switch off some positions, see how they affect the cash flow statement, for example. So, for example, what will happen if the payroll will increase, for example, on 40%, how serious this will what impact this will bring to the simple discounted payback period diagram. So here, using these coefficients, you will be able to quickly set up these values, look at these values. You will be able to see, for example, the simple discounted payback period diagrams very quickly, and you will not be working with inputs themselves. You will be quickly creating scenarios and see how payroll affects your business idea. Then we are moving to the investment plan. So inside the investment plan, so here you can see, for example, here is the most important thing about investment plan is the ability to switch on and off different items from the investment plan, and for example have a global coefficient inside this block of inputs to see, for example, what will happen to our project if we have to invest more money in our project to get the same revenues. What will happen with simple discounted payback period. So we can see what will happen if the amount of investment that we need to start this business will increase twice, or what will happen if we will be able to invest less, for example, to get the same revenues. So we can quickly see what will happen to our business idea if for example, we will need more money to finance the investment stage of our business idea. So we can quickly create these scenarios inside this block of inputs. Then we are moving to the loan. So the loan is very closely connected with amount of financing. So here is the total amount of financing that we need to start the business. It consists of our own money, for example, and the loan itself. So for example, if we take the loan, we will need totally this amount of financing, but for example, if we won't be taking a loan, the total amount of financing will be this, because we won't be having principal payments, interest payments, and so on. So the amount will be less. And for example, here, when entrepreneurs see how the loan payments affect simple and discounted payback period, they usually want to, for example, decrease the amount of loan, for example. And they want to see what will be the profitability. So let's say, for example, so the first scenario will be $1.5 million loan. So for example, the level of profitability. So for example, here we can see the level of profitability is around 5%. And for example, if we decrease the amount of loan, for example, and take 500,000 loan, so here we can see that the level of profitability jumps. So we can see here how seriously loan affects our business idea. And now we can, for example, take away the loan completely. So here, comparing different scenarios, we can, for example, see the best way of using loan, our own funds. So usually when entrepreneurs see how a loan affects their business idea, they rethink their business concept and say, for example, let's wait a little bit and let's use our own funds, because loan eats our profitability of our business idea. This is the moment when entrepreneurs usually start rethinking the way they want to finance their business idea, the structure of financing. And this is also a very important moment when they rethink not the business concept itself, but the way they want to finance their future business idea, because they see the cash flow statement, they see how their loan payments affect their profitability level. So this is a great moment when the entrepreneur for the first time sees the operating profit, the loan payments comparing to the operating profits. And this is the moment when the person starts thinking, well, maybe we should use our own funds instead of using loan, because we have to pay so much to the bank. So this is very interesting moment, and you have to create the block of inputs for the loan, and in order to see how loan affects the financial model of your business idea. So then we start looking at the cash flow statement. Here we have three main lines: operating activity, investment activity, financing activity. And the result from operating activity shows us the way business breathes itself. So it is revenues minus direct costs, payroll, fixed costs, taxes. So this is the way how business breathes without external burden. In this case, it is interest payments and principal payments. And here inside cash flow statement, we can see the cash balance at any given moment inside the timeline. And here we can see if the project is going nowhere for a very long time. So for example, when the project starts generating its own cash. So for example, here we can see that in October 23 the project starts generating its own cash. And also we can, for example, go up, and I can show you, for example, some scenarios when a project goes nowhere for a long period of time. So for example, if we take 80% of revenues, let's try to create this scenario. 80, 75, for example. Yeah, so here if we look at the diagram, we will be able to see that during this period of time the project eats almost all the money that it earns. If we go, so this means that the loan that we are using significantly affects our financial efficiency of our business idea. So if we look at the cash flow statement in this particular case, so here we will be able to see that this is the operating profit and this is the loan payment. And here we can see that all what we earn we give to the bank. And in this case, for example, the entrepreneur starts, for example, rethinking the business concept, for example, and looking at the, let's go back to the cash flow statement. I will show you that that if we look at the last line of the cash flow statement, we can see here that the cash balance is not growing. This means that the project, everything is working, but we do not get the profits. So because the cash balance is not growing. And looking at the cash flow statement, you're able to see well, first of all, looking at the simple and discounted payback period, you're able to notice this story. And looking at the cash flow statement, you're able to see why this is happening. So in this case, for example, when the loan is over, the cash starts accumulating. And your business idea may contain another reason why this story may happen, why cash balance at the end of the period is not growing. And it is very interesting to dive deeper to see why this may happen. So usually looking at the, first of all, at simple and discounted payback period, so people are noticing that there may be a period when the cash flow is not growing, and then they dive into the cash flow and they're looking why the accumulated cash is not growing. So it is very interesting, and this well, usually leads to the rethinking of the business concept. So this is a very interesting moment inside it. Well, this leads to rethinking of the business concept. So let's get to our, let's set up the base values. And then usually the entrepreneurs move to the sensitivity analysis, and what they do, they start, for example, adding coefficients to, for example, so investment plan. So what they do, they add sensitivity analysis coefficient to investment plan. And they press sense button and see what will happen to their business idea, if the amount of investment will grow or decrease, what will happen with simple, discounted payback period, net income, net present value. So let's press it. Then, for example, we can increase the step. Then, for example, the entrepreneur wants to add the sensitivity analysis coefficient to some other, for example, parameter. This can be, for example, the amount of loan. Also, they are traveling along the model, adding this coefficient to any block of inputs they would like to investigate. So they can add to sales plan, so they're playing with steps, they are playing with inputs that they would like to add coefficients to. And this is very interesting process because they create sometimes hundreds scenarios for their business model, adding this coefficient, sensitivity coefficient to this or that block of inputs. They are switching on and off different revenues, expenses. So this helps all this system of coefficients and sensitivity analysis. So this environment helps future entrepreneur to see what are the strengths of their business idea, what are the weaknesses. So that's why the financial model must be detailed monthly, not yearly, because this will show you the real amount of money you will need to start the business. This will show you the real amount of operating losses that you will face during the first several months of operating activity. This will tell you a lot about your business idea. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, share, subscribe. We are starting a new financial model next video. So see you guys in next videos. Order financial models from scratch. I will give you the link at the end screen of this video to the playlist where all this stuff will be living, all these tutorials, and I will put all the links on these tutorials in the description of this video as well, so you may watch absolutely free the whole process how I created this model from scratch till this final overview. So thank you guys for watching, see you next videos, thank you and bye.